Hey, friends. You just flip that. Oh no. Sorry, y'all, for that loud noise. I was just fixing my birds. It is early, and so they are all downstairs right now. Katie in my comments. Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
How are
You didn't
you?
have to. It's okay.
I
It's
know.
okay. I was just
I'm
being.
cool. I'm chilling. I'm good.
All right.
If I get nervous, I'll drop.
Hey, friend.
Friend. Hey, friends. Hey, Ellie. Hey, Kelsey, Kelsey, Kelsey. Dun, 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 dun.
You guys didn't dump out all your foods. So, tonight we're going to be talking about abortion. I thought, you know, it's a good topic we should be revisiting more often. It's only been a little more than a year since the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and I don't know about you, but I'm still tired of men hosting debates about this topic.
Sick of it. Over
People
it.
without uteruses, if you will.
And they don't
Yes.
even talk about it correctly when they
No,
do talk.
it's frustrating. You know, my birds. Um, yes. Is there an echo still?
When
Oh,
they can
Kelsey
put
has
their
one.
feet up in the stirrups and go get a pap smear and have to deal with all that stuff.
Right. So if they don't have a uterus, like the whole no uterus, no opinion comment is something that I, um, you know, think is pretty valid.
I think it's fair.
Um, I think that it's people. I know that mostly cis men get very mad about that idea because they're not used to being told they don't have an opinion. They don't get to have an opinion on it. But like, hey, if your opinion is that it's none of your business or women have a right, people with the uterus have a right to their own bodies, then great. That's a fine opinion. You can have that one. But if you want to tell us what we can and cannot do with our uterus, then you don't get one.
Correct. That is not how that is supposed to work. I had to come down and get some water. Everybody drink some water and clench your jaw. Relax your shoulders. Feel
Hi,
good.
everyone.
Hi,
Do
how are
some
you?
Sorry, I had
magic.
an echo when I first came up, but now it's way better.
You
Oh
sound
man,
beautiful.
Thomas found
Oh,
us
love you
fast.
guys.
That was quick. Okay. Well, you looks like this is another no uterus no opinion person. Thomas.
Yeah, with the whole 53 followers.
Okay.
How did it find us so
Glasses.
fast? Agreed. Abortion is in fact healthcare. It's one of the things that I think is like super important
Mm-hmm.
to recognize that abortion is a part of healthcare. Abortion affects many people. Hey there, Maven. I don't
Hi.
know where I was going. I got distracted. Hi.
Hey,
So,
Megan.
welcome to the Sass Show.
Oh,
It's your
thank
first
you.
time here.
It is indeed. I'm excited.
I mean, we're excited to have you. So, um, full disclosure. Well, you already know because I messaged you. I wasn't. We were watching an abortion live the other day, and you were doing a wonderful job explaining how. Um, well, I think you should probably explain.
Hmm.
I just had an ADD moment. I'm sorry.
You're fine. I love the reframing of the conversation with abortion to put all the responsibility on men. That's like my favorite part.
Oh,
But I'm not sure. Was it Rudy's live?
yes. Yes,
Oh,
it
okay.
was.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. With Rudy's live, I was Rudy is a pro-life Democrat, which is painful in the sense of like I typically will say like forced birther, right? But
Mhm.
I don't think Rudy is a forced birther. He just is. If we can prevent abortions, then I just would like less abortions, and it's not okay for me, but I want women to have the choice, right? Because he understands kind of where we are right now, right? And he understands the economics because there's a couple of ways we can talk about abortion. And with him, you I went from the economic route, which is if people really want to be pro life when it comes to women birthing or people birthing children into the world, what we need to talk about is providing the resources so that people can have children and not worry about health care. They've got maternal and paternal leave. They've got the support to be able to do that. And the problem is the same people who scream about being pro-life are the same people who will not vote for broad social economic change.
Absolutely. One of the topics that we were talking about is when it comes to um, like abortion, like pro-life people, they want to prevent abortion, there's two very simple things that can be done to prevent abortion. One is comprehensive sex ed,
Mm-hmm.
starting in kindergarten, which of course obviously is age appropriate sex ed,
Right.
and then free and easily accessed birth control, right? And the third thing is exactly what you're talking about, is dealing with the economic situations that often lead to abortion, which is that raising a child in our economy just really isn't possible.
Right. It makes it very difficult. But I also think that the comprehensive sex ed is a great place to start. And I believe early on comprehensive sex ed and age appropriate for younger children is to help stop child abuse, right?
Yes.
That's the first step, stopping child abuse. But then you've got we also have to reframe how we talk about this with men and boys. So if we include into that comprehensive sex ed that men and boys are the ones in actual control of whether or not someone is pregnant, that's where we need to start. Because right now, even the birth control, even free, accessible birth control, still puts the onus on people who must take that to prevent pregnancy. And when we talk about male birth control and what they did for an injection, where they were doing a study, that they stopped the study when a few men in the study had some discomfort, and they were like, oh, that's not going to work, so we're going to stop the study pursuing hormone and injectable birth control for men, even though the litany of symptoms that we suffer from birth control, it doesn't matter, because these men who were the ones running the study, they don't care about women's discomfort, right? They just don't care. So we have to start this conversation a lot earlier about pregnancy and how pregnancy happens, and reframe the conversation for the responsibility to fall on men who truly do control it.
Yeah, absolutely. Male birth control is just like the easiest solution to all of this, because ultimately at the end of the day, a woman can only get pregnant once every 9 months, or a person with a uterus can only get pregnant once every 9 months.
Right.
And men often, more often than than people want to talk about, are the ones who are impregnating women, and they can impregnate a different woman every day. So it does need to be placed on them. My friend
And
Taylor down here.
I just want
Yes.
to, I just in real quick and say that I do have to go in at the beginning of August to get a surgery done, because my birth control that I have is embedded into my uterus and needs to be surgically removed, um, and then inserted. So birth control is extremely painful for some. And I do have to be on it because I do have PCOS. And without it, I would be in excruciating pain. Even though I am part of the 2S LGBTQIA plus community, and won't get pregnant from my wife. So I just wanted to add that in there, that the gentleman who was bringing up the birth control in the comments, that it is excruciatingly painful for some, and that people in the LGBTQIA community still do have to undergo some pretty painful procedures to get said birth control removed from their uterus.
Oh,
That's
sorry
it.
you went through that, Kelsey. That sucks. My 22-year-old
Yes.
old had their IUD taken out today and replaced, and they were like, "Yeah, take some ibuprofen." They didn't give her any type of topical.
That's awful, because
Mm-hmm.
that is one of the most
I
excruciatingly
know. I know.
painful procedures ever. Not to
I know.
mention, they stab you. They
Right.
literally puncture through your cervix.
Well, right. And because she's had an IUD in for the last 5 years, when I got mine and when she got hers put in, they tell you wait till you get your period so that your cervix is open and is softer a little bit. You know what I mean? It's
Yep.
supposedly to help. So, but the problem is that when you go and you get removal and you have to go get reinsertion, immediate reinsertion, they're yanking that through a closed cervix, and they're
Yep.
and they're stabbing it through a closed cervix. And
Very true.
they don't, and like physicians just don't care. I mean, there are people who will like demand their physicians, but I tried to tell my 22-year-old, like, call a few days ahead, tell them that you're anxious about this, ask them for a Medicaid, like a Valium or like something to help relax you, or a pain,
There
like something to
are
prevent pain.
not, I don't want to interrupt you, but there are doctors who will
Yes.
use propofol to knock you out.
Yeah, not her
Now,
doctor. But then also
mm,
she just had anxiety even about calling and trying to do it and not trying to be a bother, so she didn't. And that's what women
yeah. Oh,
do. That's what people do, right? They just,
mm,
yeah. So, I mean, just people don't realize what we have to go through. And like you said,
It's
you need it for a medical reason. You have to take this for medical reasons.
you'll feel a little pinched is the worst sentence ever uttered by a doctor and the biggest lie ever.
yeah.
Fact.
Yeah,
My doctor's
absolutely.
lucky I didn't throat punch her, because I don't have control of my limbs when I'm in pain, and that's a legit thing. Um, please hug your baby for me and give her all the loves in the world, because that's trauma. That's
Yeah.
trauma. No wonder she has anxiety to even call. I mean, that's
Mhm.
the worst. I'm sending all of my love to your baby and you
Thank you.
as a
Thanks.
mom.
Yeah, it stinks. She called me right after and was like, "That was awful." And I'm like, "I'm
Oh,
sorry."
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, but her boyfriend comes back from his little cruise. He's in the Navy, so they're out to sea and comes back next week. I was like, "Well, at least you have a week to recover before he gets home." So
Oh, there you
we
go.
tried to make a little
So,
joke about it and be like, and you don't have to worry about it. Like, you're not going to worry about getting pregnant.
so I did
Oh,
want to
my
touch
wife.
on the male birth control thing. They do have one that is in it's past test trials now, and it's just waiting on funding.
Yeah, I heard about
Um,
that. The new one, yeah.
and the only side effects are acne, um, uh, a minor loss in sex drive, and tiredness. Meanwhile, all of our birth controls have front and back tiny script that you need a magnifying glass for, and come with tons and tons and tons of issues that can come up, including unaliving.
Hmm. It's funny that there's so much pushback and it's so hard to fund male birth control for this with these reasons because those, if you tell a group of men, most men, that, okay, if you take this pill, you can't get a person with a uterus pregnant. However, it's going to lower your sex drive a little bit. Guess what? They're probably not going to take it, which is absolutely ridiculous, but I would bet that would be the survey result.
If those were the side effects of birth control for me, I would pop those like candy.
Hmm.
They would be in every room of my house.
Yeah.
That's hilarious because, like, I had to have an IUD because, I mean, I no longer have a uterus, but, or ovaries. So I went into menopause at like 40 because I had cancer. So, but before when I had to have an IUD, I had to have that because I would have had 12 kids if I was relied upon to take birth control pills because I have severe ADHD, no routine in my life other than waking up and going to bed. So that's it. So I'm so thankful I didn't have to take the pill.
I had a terrible reaction to taking the pill and couldn't take the pill or anything like that. And
Oh,
as a
wow.
result, have two children.
That's right.
We
Right.
we
And
one
I
one of one of the kids in my life, when she was 14 and she was caught engaging in oral with her boyfriend. Um, we actually took her to Planned Parenthood and did the implant, which is you don't have to worry about it, but the side effects of that aren't great. I don't know if you've ever looked at those. I also did it for my little
oh
cousin. When I found out her boyfriend was living in her house, I was like, okay, we're gonna go. You need to go get birth control. So we did the implant for her as well.
Yeah,
I was
that one was what my daughter started with, and it was awful. We had to go get it taken out, and that's when she went and got the Kylena for the IUD.
Yeah, it causes by the way, just in case you're wondering, it causes pain, changes to your period, um, a high risk of non-cancerous but ovarian cysts, lower sex drive, dizziness, headaches, mild insulin resistance, and mood swings, depression, and these are like the common side effects of the implant,
Wow.
along with the common like
The weird one.
blood
Those
clots,
are said,
stroke.
like, this is gonna happen.
It
So,
is crazy.
so another situation that I know my family has. We have the ovarian cysts, but another thing that we have is my older sister got a double dose of genetics on this one. We have heart-shaped uteruses, and then
Oh,
she also got a twisted uterus.
oh,
And so when she was pregnant with my niece, who's now 17, she went into labor at 22 weeks, and she had to be life flighted to the hospital. After she gave birth, the baby had to be life flighted to another hospital, where she spent 6 months in the hospital, in the NICU. But my dad went to my sister's house afterwards to clean up and everything so that when she came home, it would be relaxing. He said, and this is a trigger warning about blood, he said that he put his hand on the mattress and pushed down, and just a lake of blood flowed over his hand.
wow.
She was on bed rest from week 6 and on. Those are the type of complications where someone should be able to choose an abortion if they wanted it.
My bird
Yeah.
is sad because he can't fit in my shirt, so he's
Well,
probably
I
going to
have
be
a
upset about
protein
it.
S deficiency that causes me to clot. Everybody knows here I had 6 strokes because of it. Well, a lot of people don't realize actually I lost 2 babies because of it. So I had 2 stillbirths. I could not go on birth control because of the blood clot disorder. That is not an option for me, not at all. And because of this, I actually had to have abortion because of the fact that I was going to lose that baby too.
Hmm.
And if you think about already losing 2 of them, one at 6 months and the other one at 9 months, you would just have to commit me if I lost a third.
I am definitely sorry to hear that with your experience. And that one of the things that has occurred after the overturning of Roe v. Wade is there are now states like Texas where you wouldn't have had that option.
Oh, yeah, there are states right now where women are going, they basically require you to go septic. And the thing with sepsis is that you have a 50-50 chance of living if you go septic. It just depends on how your body responds. And that's what they're putting women through right now because they're like, well, we can't do anything unless your life's in danger, and we can't say it's in danger until you're septic.
And it's weird that you say that because I lost the first one in 2001. And the doctor was going on vacation, so I had to wait a week and a half to give birth to this baby that died.
Mm-mm.
And what,
Oh my
besides possibly
gosh.
going septic,
That's a lot.
what does that do to you mentally? I locked myself in the house for a year
I believe it. I'm
because of the
sorry.
depression.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
so
And
sorry.
they are making women do that on purpose now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there are 9 states that have total abortion bans with no exceptions for like rape or incest. Alabama, Arkansas, Louisiana, Missouri. Where do my states go? Oklahoma, South Dakota, Tennessee, and Texas. Wisconsin is trying to block the law. It's one of them too. And most of those bans include jail time, and Texas is up to life.
Have y'all heard about what they're doing in Ohio?
No.
Oh
How
God.
well, so they gathered, constituents in Ohio gathered, the constituents went out and got to work. There we go. I'm not distracted now. And they collected 750,000 signatures in order to get a abortion referendum question on the ballot in November to allow Ohioans to vote on having a change to the Constitution to codify abortion in the state of Ohio in their Constitution. Okay. They only had to get, I think, 350,000. They got 750,000.
Wow.
Yes. So then they did, Ohio, there's been a poll done, and Ohioans are 59.1% in favor of a constitutional change for abortion. So what did the very Republican, very gerrymandered Ohio state legislature do? They called for a special election in August for a vote on changing the majority vote in order for a constitutional amendment to be 60% instead of a simple majority.
Of course they did.
Exactly. So this is the kind of, like, pardon me, fuckery that these folks are willing and able to do. I live in the last state in the South that has not made any changes since the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and that is because the only reason why is because we have a brick wall in our Senate. We have a simple majority in our Senate in Virginia, and that is the only reason why. And so this is just the kind of stuff that they're doing in order to make sure that we cannot have our rights.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know anybody in Ohio They know that an August special election turnout is going to be shit.
Mm.
Okay, so if y'all know anybody in Ohio, they need to vote and they need to vote no. And
But
that's one thing that
is
Rudy,
it
like that's the
worded
thing about
wrong?
Rudy.
Is it worded messed up or is it worded straightforward?
Well, so I have not, I don't know that the referendum, I'm assuming the referendum question is already done. And it was done, apparently was presented to the legislature by the people who collected the signatures, the orgs that collected the signatures. So that doesn't mean that that's the way the referendum question is, but the way I understand it to be written from people in Ohio, and Rudy verified this with me, was that it's a no vote on that ballot referendum as of right now.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to say about Rudy, like from, at least like as he says, claims to be pro-life, but he supports what Republicans are doing. He supports, amendments and things like that. So
Because a lot of times they'll put it all backwards, like vote no if you are for overturning the thing
yes.
that would change this to being yes.
Yes, it's that coded language. They basically write the question to make sure that you are confused about whether you should vote yes or no. And then they rely on people asking people, like their friends, hey, are you voting on that referendum? Like, what are you voting on that? Which then allows people to perpetuate that if they're talking to a friend that is politically engaged, but maybe they don't even realize that person is politically engaged.
I think that's something that's an important takeaway. I've already made a note of it. To be talking about between now and the date of that vote is for people in Ohio. Like we know that social media, people will tell you all the time that we're not doing anything on social media, but we actually know social media has had a huge impact on elections. So if we want to help change or stop what's happening to abortion in this country, putting out the message about the special election in Ohio is one of the things we can absolutely do. The more people it reaches, the more people will know to vote no. I'm probably gonna make a video about that. I'll probably make like 6
And
of
I'll
them
add it
between
to
now
the
and
link
then.
tree.
Video about that.
I'll add a link to the link tree about it.
It's so funny. I say that, and then you're like, I'll make a video, and I'm like, oh yeah, why didn't I think of that? I'll make
Well,
a video too.
I'm gonna have to set like reminders because ADHD, right? Like I relate to that.
Oh,
I'm definitely passionate about this topic, and then I'll ADHD onto something else. But I think that's a huge something that's happening right now that we can affect change immediately by getting the word out of election, vote in those.
agreed.
Or they may
Yeah, no,
not
this stuff
realize the
matters.
importance of changing it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, we just had a primary in June, and in one of the districts for a candidate I was supporting, I was working the primary at the one of the polling places, and it was so interesting because this particular district only had a Democratic primary, no Republican primary. But you know how they put out like any type of election day, you see the signs on the road everywhere, next to polling places, and you're just like, oh yeah, it's like election day. If you're not politically engaged, right? If you're like those of us that are politically engaged, like we get it, right? But imagine when we weren't, and we see these signs, you're like, oh yeah, it's election day, right? So we had several people, so many show up that were Republicans to vote, and we were like, oh, this is the Republican primary, or I mean the Democratic primary. And they were like, oh, so no Republican? And I was like, no. They're like, oh, okay. So like they didn't even know what they were coming to vote for. They didn't know who they were coming to vote for. They just literally saw the like vote signs. And that's their normal precinct that they vote at. And they were like, let me get over here and park and see who I can come in here and vote for. Not even knowing at all what they would have been voting for.
Yeah, there's nothing uninformed voters.
I'm gonna cycle Anna out for Maya. I have a guest request, so I can bring Anna back up in a little bit, but I went ahead and cycled her out. Hi there, Maya. Welcome to the Sass Show.
Thank you. I just want to say that I literally just got yelled at by two men because I said I don't like abortion, but it's none of my business who gets one, as long as they consent on giving one. As long as they not being pressured and getting one, it's none of my business. It's none of your business. Go stop being in people's business about something you don't have no control over.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So I just got yelled at by two men saying, "Oh, you don't know what a real woman is.
What?
What happens if she just kills the baby? What if when it comes out? And what
That's called
happens really
murder.
exactly? That's what I try to tell them. And I literally just got my feelings hurt because I said just because you disagree with abortion, that don't mean go control women.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, a
So,
majority, a vast majority of people, from what I understand, is that it feel very similarly to what you do. And for myself, if I ever were to get pregnant, I have PCOS. I just turned 40. It's probably never going to happen. But if I did get pregnant, I always wanted a child. I wanted to give birth to a child. I would keep that child. But I would not force that on anybody else. That's a person's choice. It's none of my business. I think that's a very common thing. So those men are dumb.
also, I want to clarify something for anyone in here that doesn't know this, or if you hear someone say it. The California post third trimester or fourth trimester abortion is not what it is being it's not what it is, what the right is saying it is.
Correct.
What was happening and what is still happening is that there are babies being born, and after they are born there are complications, and those complications to the child unaliving due to just complications, and women were being arrested. The mother of that child, the mothers, the birthing people of those children were being arrested afterwards. It is a protection to make it so that the birthing person is not arrested due to complications from the birth.
Right. That's
Or
correct.
when
Why?
a child being allowed to have compassionate care and allow a child that will not survive to pass peacefully
Correct.
The
Yes.
without
people that yelled
extraneous
at me
intervention. Yeah.
said put the baby up for adoption. I said adoption is really hard on kids that's already in there. Like I told them I want to adopt to give kids a better life, but I don't have the money for it right now because money helps the child to survive in life. What am I
That's it.
supposed to do is adopt a child while broke? Where am I to have a child while broke?
Well, but it's only men who say dumb shit like that because they're not the ones that have to go through the pains of pregnancy. And I'm not even talking about the labor. I'm talking about the pain that we experience during pregnancy. And so that's why they're like, oh, they're so easily, just give it up for adoption. Like,
I'm sorry.
no.
And I mean, this is a totally off another tangent, but I don't owe anybody a baby. You don't deserve a
That
baby just
Exactly.
part.
because you want one.
That's right. That's that part.
Well, it's over 600,000 children in the foster care system now, adoptable children in the foster care system now. Just give the child up for adoption. It is traumatic for the child. That is absolutely true.
It
And
is
it's also not always the solution.
It's also very expensive. And what disgusts me is that nobody ever talks about adoption reform and changing the laws
Yeah.
so that we stop buying and selling children, especially to people that can afford to buy a child, which will cost them $80,000. And that is the way that the churches also make money.
Yes.
Hmm.
So,
There's
so
also
it's such a
oh sorry
problem. No, it's such a problem.
There's
different
also
versions.
and this is a problem, and it is legal. Just so we're clear, if you want to Google it, you can. There's also child rehoming.
Oh my
It is
gosh.
a problem
Yep.
with people who adopt these babies, and then once the child gets to a certain age, they don't want them anymore. There are Facebook groups. There are auctions that they hold for the children, and
Yes.
all they do is post a picture and or let the child walk across a stage, and they tell the people their attributes,
It's
and it
literally
is
human
perfectly
trafficking.
legal. They just sign the guardianship over to the person that wants that child now, and it is an ongoing issue and perfectly legal within the United States.
Wow.
So one of these guys told me that he experienced child loss. And I said, I am so sorry for him because no parent wants to go through that type of experience. But don't force other people to keep their child because of traumatic sense. A traumatic. I feel sorry because sorry for him because no man nor woman should go through that pain. But don't force that on other people. Don't force people to keep their kids. And he said, "Oh, women don't care about men's trauma if they lost a child." I said, "I care. I care if you lost, what happens to you. I care what happens to your girlfriend, wife, your child. I care, but don't force people to do what you want."
That's a sensitive topic for me because there is no experience like the experience of going through a pregnancy, and that is good and bad.
I
And
actually
go ahead.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, no, you go.
I actually, if you don't mind, Sass, you mind if I talk a little bit about the science behind pregnancy?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Um, and you can look this up, and the way that I look it up is not people's favorite way to look at this, but if you go into TikTok and you search pregnancy parasite, you will pop up with this TikTok with a certified scientist who is that she is this is her field of study. Okay? When you get pregnant, you you start making the HCG hormone. That hormone is tricking your body, basically. So the egg comes down, it attaches, and that's when it starts producing the HCG. What HCG does is it tricks your body into thinking that all of the nutrients all need to go there first, and it leads to your body not getting as many nutrients as it's supposed to because they go to the fetus first. The outside of the egg is the part of the fetus, the amniotic sac is the only part of that is matching to your DNA. If it was not for that, your body would reject the entire thing, and you would have abortions every single time because your DNA does not match perfectly to what is inside of it. So the
Hmm.
outside has to. So when it attaches, once that attaches, the HCG goes through your body, tricking your body into sending the nutrients there, which leads to iron deficiencies. It leads to calcium deficiencies. It leads to tooth decay. It leads to it's why you're tired. It's because your body is not getting the nutrients that you need, which is why we have to go on prenatal medication.
And if you're a 16-year-old who gets pregnant like me and you don't have the financial resources or you are averse because of sensory to taking the prenatals or any vitamins because of smell that you can't even swallow it, right? Then when you're 46 like me, you have to get a lot of implants because I have struggled with my teeth, which I have been told is directly related to my teen pregnancy because I was still developing myself. And didn't have the access and resources. And I had an aversion to taking it when I finally did get the resources, right? So I had to rely on my diet, which wasn't all that great.
Because you're a teenager.
Because I'm a
Mooney's
teenager.
Yeah.
That's right. Because I'm a teenager. That's right. And so, no one talks about the long-term effects of even one time having one baby, much less. Anna had reminded me that I brought up the IBLP stuff in another live about the quiverful movement. You have a quiverful of kids.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
This new, and they're called now the Joshua generation. We hear them on TikTok all the time. These young, late teen, early 20s, mid 20 bros that get on here and want to talk about abortion, and it's all real philosophical. They can't really talk about policy. Sometimes they can, but a lot of times it's like philosophical politics, right? And they're very confident, right? But you're like, I just want to ask them, like, were you homeschooled? And I don't mean that offensively, but secular homeschoolers are fantastic, but we all know that the majority of homeschoolers are not secular homeschoolers, okay? And the IBLP movement with all these children, these women that were having, like Duggar had, 20 pregnancies. She had 19 kids. I mean, I think she had more pregnancies than 20, but her 20th child, like she just couldn't have, like she miscarried and a little bit later in term. And, like I just can't imagine what is going on inside that woman's body.
My mom had 2 kids, and she was a nurse. From a young age, I believe 13, until she just recently passed, she always told anything can happen during pregnancy. So please go to the doctor. Please take what the doctor says and do what you need to do to make sure you are okay, because anything can happen.
Yeah.
And she said she was a nurse up to when she passed last year. She always told me that our family has a history of miscarrying early, because my mom had 3 before she had me.
Wow.
So she said you need, and it could be passed down to me. So she always told me anything can happen. Definitely a woman in our family that can experience double the experience as a normal pregnant woman, to listen and pay attention. If you hear from a fellow mother that what happened to her, take it as an account. Like, hey, write it down. Make sure you go to the doctor. Make sure you do anything that you can, but make sure your life comes over the unborn baby's life. Your life matters, so make sure I'm okay.
Your mom taught you very well.
Well, that brings another point, right? Like a lot of times there are abortions that are necessary to save the life of the mother, right? Abortion is healthcare. Ectopic pregnancies are a prime example. C-sections are often billed as abortion. Those are just 2 examples of where abortion is part of healthcare. I know there are many others that I am probably not mentioning yet.
And just to be clear, an ectopic pregnancy cannot be moved.
No.
Once it attaches, it is attached. It cannot be transplanted into the uterus. And it is fatal.
Did y'all remember, I think I posted on a TikTok a long time ago, but that he was like a state legislator that was like, thought that you could just send a little camera.
You could
down
swallow
the
it as a
throat.
pill.
Yeah.
Yes.
like you do
What?
for colonoscopies.
Like,
Yes.
what?
Sir.
Sir, tell me you know nothing about the reproductive system in women and probably not even men without saying so.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Why,
Hello,
man?
I'm sorry. I'm in my last year of college and I have to finish my homework. I'm so sorry to leave.
No, thank you for coming.
Thanks for
I appreciate you
coming.
coming
Yeah, I
by and
appreciate you
sharing your
being here.
experience.
And don't listen to
No
those
problem.
men.
Yeah, don't listen to them. Good
Men
luck
are
on your last year.
dumb. Yeah.
I hope you
Congratulations.
guys have a good day.
You too.
You
Thank you.
too. Here's my issue with cis men having an opinion. You don't have the equipment. You don't have to go through the pregnancy. So when I look, I don't have a problem with Rudy except for on this subject. He will never be pregnant. He will never have to go through this. It,
Yep.
having something inside of your body, a man having something inside of their body other than a tapeworm, convincing the body that the nutrients need to go there first is never going to happen.
By the way, I loved your science lesson. I mean, I'm familiar.
Yes.
I've had a miscarriage before, so in, like the body making, but I mean, I knew kind of what you said, but the way you presented it, I was like, that was like a real science lesson. I appreciated
I
it.
I highly suggest, and I know that not everybody likes to think of an embryo or a fetus as a parasite, but if you search parasite pregnancy, you will pop up with her video. I think it's the very first one. And she goes into like the scientific terms and each stage and all of that. And the whole time, that embryo and fetus are tricking your body into putting them first.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I'm with you on like the Rudy thing. Like, I mean, I still have a problem with men having an opinion, but like, I'm not going to excoriate you for it. As long as you're voting the right way and you say that, you understand that it's a necessity and that it's kind of a pipe dream to like, he's living in some kind of storyland, in my opinion, about like, women, he hopes women never have to have abortions. It's going to happen, right?
Yes.
But it's like my own husband, when we were dating, I just looked at him and I was like, hey, how do you feel about abortion? Well, he was like, oh, I don't think, people should have abortions or whatever. It was whatever that talking point is. And I looked at him and I was like, I don't think you can have a fucking opinion. How about that? And he looked at me and went,
Exactly.
yes, ma'am. And he has never said, he's been like, I mean, he literally I just changed his mind instantly like that. Like, why can't all men just be like
My
that?
my husband, when he was fresh out of high school, his high school sweetheart, he ended up getting her pregnant, and she went and had an abortion. And he told me, he was like, I wish before she had done it, she had talked to me. And I told him, I was like, why? And he goes, well, I would have told her that I wanted the baby. And I said, and if she didn't want it? And he's like, that's her choice. I just wanted her to know. I just would have liked her to know that the support was there if that is what made it so that she made that decision.
I mean,
But if
that's
that's
good.
not the reason why, then yeah, it's her body. She gets to do whatever she wants to with it.
I mean, that's good and all, but I feel like, 18-year-old, or 40-year-old us saying that 18-year-old us would have wanted to like raise a baby at 18, like, and had the support, I just like, I feel like that's just always this like kind of idea that people have because it rarely turns out that way. You know what I mean?
And it rarely turns out well that way. Being a young mom myself, I was a very young mom, and I was 19 when I had my son and 20 when I had my daughter. And entirely too young to have them at that age, but I did. And it's tough either way. And there was a lot of hardship in between those times, financially and otherwise. So it's not always, for me, like when I go back to it, it's about that personal choice, right? You make the choice as a person to have a child, and that's your choice. And why would I want to take that choice from another woman? I mean, just because I might choose something different, I mean, I'm going to prevent my neighbor down the street, or want to prevent my neighbor down the street, or my neighbor's daughter, or anyone from that matter from gaining access to health care that they need for their mental and physical health. It's just wrong.
I was 19 when I gave birth to my eldest daughter, and it was a child raising a child. I was legally an adult, but I had no idea what adulting was. I had no idea the financial strain that comes with being an adult, and then add in a baby. It was like I was drowning and someone handed me a baby.
Yeah, and my ex-husband was a lot older than me, so that kind of helped me to grow up a little bit too. I think it helped me being around someone who was older and more mature to be more mature, and a more mature mom, and the ideas that I already had about raising kids from growing up in my own household. I mean, that's where we get most of our ideas anyway. But the thought of kind of taking that away from anybody just seems to be wrong, unless I am,
Personally
the
involved.
yeah, the one that's going to financially take care of you. It's just asinine.
Well, that's one of the things that Maven was saying earlier, right? Um, about kids financially, raising children financially. One of the things that we would want to do in order to lower abortion rates would be to improve the social safety nets that we have for nice, good catch, Justin. For, oh, I lost my train of thought. See that? It happened so quickly.
For children,
For
for women who
mothers,
get pregnant.
for yes, for people who have babies. Like we need to strengthen those social safety nets all across this country.
My
Well, I think it's like romanticized too in some ways, right? Like there's just this
Hmm.
romanticized idea about that, and then when it actually it actually happens, then you're just like, what in the hell did I just do?
Yeah, nobody talks about what parenting actually is. It's not
Mm-mm.
it's not this creation of your mini me. It's this
Uh-huh.
it's teaching a child, it's teaching another human how to human when you don't know how. Because none of us know how to properly, not really. And it's a weight on your shoulders that is unexplainable.
Yes.
Yes, yes. I mean, I'm 46. I'll be 47 this year, and I have a 29-year-old. I had them when they were, um, I was 16. So I got pregnant when I was 16. I just turned 17 when I had them, and was, left. I got my GED when I was 9 months pregnant. Like I took the exam 9 months pregnant because I knew that if I didn't, I had gotten a compulsory release of attendance my senior year, meaning I couldn't attend the amount of days required to graduate, because of pregnancy and working. And so, and I worked a full-time job my senior year. And so I just went ahead and left early and then went and got my GED right before I gave birth. So, because I knew I wouldn't do it if I didn't do it before I had the baby. And then I waited 10 years to have my second one because I was like, I can't handle, like, this is a lot. I'm a kid raising a kid with very little support in a military husband at the time that was deployed all the time. So it was not easy.
No,
So
that could have been easy.
Yeah, we were military too, Nathan said.
And when my husband and I got together, I was still working, and I was making about $9 an hour. I was working in food, but to be able to stay working, I had to put our youngest son in daycare, and it cost $400 a week, which was not my paycheck.
Mm.
And so I was literally, my husband and I sat down and I was like, where is all of the money going? And that's when I realized I was literally paying to go to work.
Which isn't crazy. And that's only increased. The cost of childcare has gone up even more than that.
Been in jobs where more than one person has not come back after maternity leave because it costs too much to come back. It would have cost more money than their paycheck to put that child in daycare.
Exactly. That was my situation. I literally couldn't afford to go back to work. I couldn't. So
that's just
I
the
stayed
mother.
And
home
if
with
you're a
my
single
baby.
mom, what do you do? You know?
Well, even with the pandemic, like they said, 1.6 million women left the workforce because
Mm.
guess who is when something like that happens or any sort of catastrophe happens, guess who's expected
Mama.
to
I don't know if they did this in other states, but in my state, they got this like bright idea that on Wednesdays they were going to have early dismissal. What the fuck is that? Every Wednesday they're going to let the kids off in the middle of the day? What about for working people that have to work Monday through Friday? Like, come on. And they were letting the students out at 12 o'clock.
And
I
it,
also
Every
had
week.
a
that's crazy.
after school daycare for a little while for my four kids, and four kids for them to watch them for 1 hour so that I could work during that. That was after all of them made it into school. It was still $700 a week
Oh
for
my
them to
gosh.
watch my children for 1 hour.
yeah, and then to charge you like $50 for every 5 minutes you're late if you're past six
Yeah.
o'clock. That bullshit too. Like, I'm trying. I'm stuck in traffic. Are you kidding me right now?
And there's actually a bunch of countries that provide um, childcare, especially early childhood care for every child. Like I was just looking it up because I knew there was a bunch of European countries. Norway spends 29,000 per year on early childhood care. Iceland, Finland, Denmark, Germany, Sweden. I mean, these are just some of the countries, but they actually will pay for daycare so that families continue working. That would be um, a huge like lessening of a financial burden on families. And you know what that would
Mhm.
lead to? Probably less abortion.
It absolutely
Well,
would, and those countries have shown those
And
statistics.
that's right.
and
Mhm.
It
our
does.
country alone doesn't have mandatory maternity leave.
Nope.
Oh, that's another one.
Nope. Nope.
And in addition to that, we do have programs for people who have Medicaid, so very, very low income families.
Yes.
Have programs so that the you can get daycare. However, I know in my area, in order to get on that list, and it is a list for the list right now, in order to get on the list, to be put on the list that is next in line, it is 3 years.
Oh,
Yeah.
no. Oh, you don't have to block. You didn't have to block him. He was saying that it's no wonder that so many people are dependent on the government because it costs $2,800 a month for 20 hours of care. I think he was saying like that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
Mm.
and that's something that so all public schools, our local governments, if funded by taxpayer dollars through state and federal government, we could absolutely have free after school care after the public school hours ended. And if we paid workers, childcare workers, great wages to go and do that work, right? That's another way to fund jobs. And then if we provide, because for me, I went back to work when my kids were 3 weeks old because I didn't have, I mean, one, I couldn't really afford both times that we were, after we had our kids, like I couldn't afford to not go back to work because I didn't have paid maternity. And so, and even though he was in the military, I had to work. So I went back to work when my kids were 3 weeks old. I was fortunate to be able to kind of work through with his schedule to be able to have him, like we had opposite schedules, so we never saw each other, but we were able to avoid daycare for the first year of both of our kids' lives. Just the way it worked out. And then, at a year, so then you have your kids that have to go in, into school. So if we can get that early childcare, every woman that wants to work could go to work.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to work. I don't know about y'all, but like I want to work. Like I've always wanted to work. Like I don't want. I don't. I think if you want to stay home and raise your kids, I think that's fantastic. But I'm not that one. Like I'm not the one. I told my kids I'm a better mother working. Trust that.
And I had that opposite thing because I wanted to stay home and be with them until they got a little bit older. And then once they got into middle school, I went back to work and then went back to school. But, I came straight out of the military, and from there, I was straight out of Appalachia. So I didn't have much school learning, and it took me a while to catch on to things. But it was great. It was a great experience that I didn't get when I was a kid, that I always wanted when I was a kid. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to give my kids that.
What's so interesting, Anna, is my whole childhood was nothing. My full observation was that everybody worked, right? And even my grandmother, like my grandmother worked. She worked out of her home, which at a time was not. She wasn't self-employed, but she did like accounting and bookkeeping for y'all. It's crazy for like the people that did the conventions for Amway. That's a whole nother live. But anyways, yeah, but like she always worked, and like that was really my role model because I didn't have a bio mother present. So I feel like my kind of lack observation of seeing everybody working around me really formed that opinion that like I just need to be working, and I didn't have that same like that desire to have something I didn't have. You know what I mean? Because like you didn't have that, so that was the desire you had to do for your kids. And I kind of looked at it like, I need to work. I need to work because everybody works, and like y'all will be fine. I was fine. You'll be fine. I'm not saying that's the right way. I'm just
Look,
saying.
no, I was the
I
same.
think
I was
I
kind of
think
the
it's
same way.
great. I think
Were
it's
you?
great. Yeah. I mean, I think the way each and every one of us have differences like that, I think that's what makes these kind of conversations so great and nuanced and fun.
Agreed. Agreed. Does anybody have boys?
I have
Children?
two boys and two girls.
2 boys and 2 girls. Okay. I had, my oldest is transgender non-binary. My youngest is bisexual, but she identifies cis. But none of them have children, and my youngest is the only one that's going to have children, possibly. They're even a possibly. They used to be, I'm having babies, and now they're like possibly. Which is it's been interesting to watch. So anybody that's got older kids, like to watch them to go from, you know what I mean? Like,
all of mine are teenagers.
yeah. And okay, are they like, are they talking about like definitely going to have kids or not going to have kids?
They're all set on absolutely not. One of them for a minute was like, I can't wait to be a dad. And I was like, let me tell you about this whole dad thing.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and that's why I've been talking to my friends who have boys to start talking about um there. And I don't know if TikTok's gonna be weird about it, so I just say evacuation because it's for ejaculation. But basically, like, just talking to them about how much control over that they have, and that's the key to pregnancy. And so, if we're gonna talk about abortions, right, then we need to put that onus back on men.
Yeah, I have helped raise several boys, and I have very specific conversations with them as they hit puberty, as they start getting closer to puberty about things like I think it's important that we teach boys about um, reproductive health, much the same as we want to impress it upon girls or people with uteruses. I think we need to teach them that as well because they need to understand what the responsibility that they're getting into when they decide that they want to have sex. Just like I also make sure to discuss consent, that anything except for an enthusiastic yes, and I explain what that means, of course, is a no. Just
Hmm.
a no. Those are just some of like the things I make sure to touch upon. Just the full discussion about anatomy and reproductive health for both um, men and women.
I just can't believe that we're 2023 and we still have people pushing back so hard on having comprehensive sex education for
I
age
know.
appropriate children. Like, it's still
Yes.
shocking to me because I'm like, I don't understand why this is. I mean, I do understand, like, I understand, but I just can't, like, I can't process, like, why, like, what's it going to
Grasp.
take here? You know what I mean? What's it going to
It's
take?
because politicians have gotten involved.
Well,
Politicians have gotten involved, and if you
Sure
teach
do.
it correctly, and you don't have the proper safety nets in place, then you have a workforce that is not created
well,
at
yeah.
the rate that they need it.
You're no, you're to, I mean, you're totally right. I mean, it's also really you know, having having the conversations. We don't talk enough about shame in this country, about the shame that we
Hmm.
um
Hmm.
that is surrounding sex, our bodies, all of that. And that is what drives why so many parents are uncomfortable even talking to their children about this, because they don't even realize that they've got shame around sex. We all do. If you're American, if you've been raised in what would be considered a traditional American household, and I don't mean traditional from nuclear family, I just mean you were born in America, you're alive right now. And there are sure some people who are raised, I mean, we raised our kids in a sex positive household because I started getting in touch with, like, understanding where my sexuality was, like, wrapped up in shame, and where that was, like, rooted from, and my parents' behaviors, and observing my own. But we don't talk to kids about it.
And the thing
That's true.
is that, like, you hear all of these people that say, well, it should be the parent should be talking about it. Well, it's comfortable.
And
It's
a lot of
it
parents
just
don't
is.
know
It's
they
uncomfortable
don't
to
know.
talk to your children about.
We can't count on just like Maven was talking about with shame and stuff that people are raised with in America towards sex. We can't count on parents to be comfortable because of shame. And they don't even know. Like everything I learned about, I'm like an elder millennial, right? I just turned 40. Everything I learned about sex and anatomy beyond the most basic things that they teach you in school, I learned from the internet. And that's not great. So I'm very much made a dedication, like the children that I've helped raise and stuff, that I would be teaching them everything that I was never taught, including age appropriate um, sex ed.
I You'll find this funny. I accidentally taught my children sex ed at the ages of 9, 8, 6, and 5. And what I mean by that is when I was giving birth to my eldest daughter, my aunt decided to get the money shot when my daughter was coming out. And the children found my daughter's baby book, and I forgot that that picture was in there. And they were
Oh,
all
goodness.
horrified. And then I had to sit down and really explain where babies come from.
Hey there. Welcome to the Sass Show.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are
So,
you?
so I'm family medicine. I'm a family medicine physician. And so I've done a lot of reproductive health, a lot of delivering babies when I was in training, and a lot of very young women, girls delivering babies. And I cannot tell you how many times I have had to explain just basic anatomy,
Mm,
just that you do not pee out of your vagina. Um, there's just the education is so insanely horrible that these parents, a lot of these parents, don't understand their own parts. So they are
yeah.
not in any sort of position to teach their children anything but what they learned, which is what we don't talk about it, we don't do it, we don't think about it.
Yep, exactly. And
Imagine
that,
being raised, a girl being raised by a single father.
Oh
And
yeah,
I,
the
I, I was.
everything.
you were too? You too?
Yes.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And he didn't want to talk about, I mean, he would get me, products, feminine products and things like that for my period, whatever. But like, he didn't want to talk about anything else,
No.
nothing else. And I was sexually active. I ended up being sexually active very young for lots of reasons. But,
I,
I mean,
it's part.
obviously I got pregnant at 16. So there's that.
It's part of the reason. I mean, my dad, I was raised by my dad. When I was 13, he allowed me the option to move to Florida where my mom was. Um, she was not a parent up to that point. And I did because I knew nothing about anything when it came to like what it meant to have a uterus and period. I didn't know anything, and I was like, oh, well, my mom's going to teach me that. She did not either, by the way. I was 15 and she was, I mean, she's a ridiculous person. She was encouraging me to have sex and get pregnant so she could raise another child. And I was like, that's crazy. No way. You didn't raise me. But like, that's the extent of sex education I had in my family, which is why I ended up going to the internet.
Oh my gosh. Well, it has been lovely talking to everyone. And oh my goodness, I'm not sure on Top Box, Tildy and Maggie.
Hi,
Um,
yes, Maggie.
hi. I wish I could come on, but I do is hopefully coming on soon. So
Oh, nice.
we're going to the venue now because she is notoriously late. So I have been in no hurry to get to the venue. So it would because I was
Thanks
like
for
having such a
coming.
good conversation with you guys.
Oh, I'm
So
so
Yes.
jealous you get to see Erica. That's great.
yes,
You
yes.
have a
All right.
great
Well,
time.
yes, another time. I would love to jump in a live another day. You just let me know.
Yes.
All right.
Absolutely. Thank you
Bye,
for
everybody.
coming.
I think I have followed, we're already friends, Karen, too. Anna, I think we are. Oh, Anna, I got you.
Okay,
And
great.
then,
Thanks.
and I already got you, Tilly and Maggie. All right, friends. See y'all later.
See you
See ya.
later.
Bye.
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 Have fun tonight.
You said that you're Maggie, right?
Bye.
Mm-hmm.
Nice to meet you, Maggie.
Yeah, good to
Hi,
meet you.
Maggie.
Mm.
So, but so so I have a 13-year-old daughter, and of course, as a physician, we use appropriate, we use accurate terminology. We call the things by their names. So my daughter at 13 now is she knows everything. She could explain the reproductive system at a college level. And she has educated all of her friends. And I was a little late on on explaining what sex was. And that was taken care of, I think, in the second grade. Some kid had an older sibling, and it flew through the classes like fire.
It went viral.
It went viral. Yes, it absolutely went viral, and I mean, the teachers had to send out emails to all the parents.
Oh
Guess
no.
what? Get Guess what that is. So, I mean, which, my kid taught everybody the middle finger, so I was glad that wasn't me.
I my okay, so I was raised in a home with my father, my two uncles, and my grandmother. Um, and I went to school and went and took health class, and they did the reproductive part of health class, and we were all told at the end of class, go home and ask your parents, you know. And I went home. My grandmother was not home, so I walk up to my dad and I was like, I was in health class today. They asked me to tell you, they told me that I needed to ask you about sex. And my dad went, ugh, huh. And he goes into the living room and turns the TV onto corn and
Oh boy.
said, that'll teach you everything that you need. And
Oh
I'm
my
sitting in the
God.
living room watching this as my grandmother walks through the door, and she lost it. She was like, go to your room. She was like, I'm dealing with your father. Like, and then she came in and she was like, don't let my sex education from the house was handshakes lead to babies. That is what I was told. If you hold a boy's hand, you will make a baby.
That's
And
okay.
I
So
was
then you
like,
just,
that's
oh
not
my
what the
gosh.
teacher told me.
It's crazy. And I mean, we're talking about, I don't know, Maggie, I might be putting you on the spot. You'll have to tell me if I am. There's 4 states now that have like a total ban on abortion. Some of those allow exceptions for incest and rape. Most of them don't, which is absolutely insane.
None of them
Um,
do.
well,
In practice, they don't.
yes, in practice, I agree with that in practice because you have to prove it. There's a lot of stuff that goes on that just is impractical when it comes to that, which ultimately is going to lead to unsafe abortions. It's not going to stop abortions, right? We know it's not going to stop. And
Right.
there's like if there's a nationwide ban on abortion, I was reading a statistic that said there'll be a 24% increase in the maternal death rate in the United States. And I'm wondering if you might if you would have any information or be able to talk about like some of the effects beyond death of an unsafe abortion.
So, historically, like back before Roe versus Wade was passed, they had septic abortion units in hospitals where they
Mm.
had women who were admitted just because they were infected, their uterus was infected from home abortion methods. And there are tons. I mean, and it's not just going somewhere to have somebody who may or may not be a medical professional. There are lots of home ways to do it, and they get pretty horrific and graphic. But it was a widespread problem. I mean, and then you have a septic abortion, and that can lead to permanent infertility. I mean, we have much better ways to treat those women now than we did in the 60s and the 50s. But, in terms of antibiotics and surgery and things to help preserve life, not necessarily. So that's going to be
Yes.
a big problem. Is that
Yeah.
these young girls are going to try their own abortions when they find information on the internet, or they're going to go to someone who has really not enough knowledge or the ability to keep the procedure sterile and they're, and then we're going to end up opening these septic abortion units again.
I wonder, and I wasn't able to find stats on it, but I'm wondering in states like Texas, especially in rural, poor areas where they might not be able to get to one of the neighboring states. I wonder if they're already seeing increase in those.
I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are. The maternal mortality rates have risen for Arkansas. I'm in Arkansas, but the maternal mortality rates have risen some. We are now number one. So proud. Go Arkansas. It's going to be a while. I mean, because right now women can still manage to, get medication abortion pills, shipped in under the radar, and there are lots of groups that are helping with, kind of helping with travel, for these women to go to other places. But as these bans kind of proliferate, it's going to become more and more difficult, because there's just not enough providers.
Right.
That's just, there's just not enough providers to get these women in. So even, especially the states surrounding the red bloc, that has, a functional total abortion bans throughout the entire South at this point. 6 weeks is impractical. Most
Yes.
women don't know, especially if you're not trying to get pregnant. You don't know that you're pregnant within, a month, and then it takes 2 weeks to get, or more, to even get in to see a provider who would be willing to give you the mifepristone and the misoprostol.
Right.
So it's functionally a total abortion ban. And
Georgia is at 6 weeks, so
yeah,
it's
and it's just impractical. I mean, it really is just, it's absurd. Especially when you're talking about somebody's first pregnancy. First pregnancies are, typically not, I guess, realized until 8 or 9 weeks. And that's when they're unexpected. I mean, obviously, if you're expecting to get pregnant, then you're watching for it. But,
right. Right.
and then, people want to, or I guess the right is now starting to use the word consensus. We want a national consensus on this. And there isn't, I mean, the consensus is that most Americans want abortion to be legal. And they still want some restrictions, but functionally restrictions don't work either, because everybody's like, oh well, we'll do 22 weeks or 20 weeks or whatever. But if you're talking about, after about 16 or 18 weeks, or even at that stage, the abortions that you're talking about are abortions for maternal health or fetal anomalies. I'm in a cancer group, and one of the women was 19 weeks pregnant when she was diagnosed with an aggressive lymphoma. And it could not wait. Chemotherapy could not wait. And chemotherapy would not allow the fetus to survive. And she made the heartbreaking decision to end that pregnancy. I mean, she had 3 other children and, a husband, and she couldn't wait, and she couldn't take the risk of just going forward with it, because it put her health in danger to continue the pregnancy and do treatment.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it was heartbreaking for her.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that a lot of people who are just staunchly pro-life or even perhaps pro-life with exceptions don't understand is that it's not black and white. The majority of abortions in this country do happen prior to 10 weeks. Like you were saying, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the ones that are in second trimester are in fact because of medically necessary. And when with the restrictions that are in many countries, like women are already suffering. They can't
Yeah.
get abortions when they've had, and they go septic, right? They can't get treatments that they might need. Their lives are being put in danger. And for people to be matters, all over the life of the mother doesn't matter. And that's what makes me most
Right.
angry, I think.
Right. I mean, ultimately, it needs to be a medical conversation between a patient and a doctor, and there don't need to be any restrictions on it whatsoever. I mean, if you go in to have an abortion, nobody's going to give you an abortion at 25 or 26 weeks because you just don't want to be pregnant. Even if you,
Right.
yeah, even if you wanted it, but if you've carried a baby that long, chances are you want that baby. And, so to say, oh, this woman's going to walk in the 39th week and decide, I just don't want to be pregnant anymore. Okay, well, that's called delivery, you
Yes.
know.
By that point, I had heard my baby's heartbeat so many times I couldn't even tell you.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
You
You've,
have
you've
either
seen,
gotten attached to that or you haven't. It's just that simple. The
yeah,
fluttering, the nausea, the like. I was so tired in both pregnancies. So like just all the time. Woke up tired. You don't go through 20, 25, 24 weeks of that and then go, "No, I changed my mind."
exactly, exactly. And I mean, even if you did, even if you walked into your doctor's office at 38 weeks and said, I'm done, I can't do this anymore, I want an abortion. If you could find somebody that would do that, there's just, it's not going to happen. There's just no way. And the cost of something like that would be ridiculous. And they're more likely to put you in a psychiatric unit. You carried it to 38 weeks, and all of a sudden, decide you want an abortion.
Yeah.
Can we
And
talk about the collateral damage of all these abortion bills? Of the women that lose their child and then are put through 3 months of hell?
Yeah, I've
There
act.
I
there
mean,
are several states. I was looking at this. Texas is one of them. That have majority of states that have a ban on abortion includes jail time, and Texas anywhere from 1 to 20 years in Texas is up to life.
I recently read a story, and I think it was about Texas. A woman had a miscarriage, and
she's
she
been
is being
released.
investigated.
She was imprisoned and was able to prove, which is not something that usually happens, was able to prove that she miscarried, and they had to release her. But she's still being investigated even with that proof.
That's horrific.
There's
Yeah.
also, there was a mother and a daughter who were talking on Messenger, and they were talking about getting an abortion. They left the state. The daughter got an abortion. They came back, and they are both in jail here.
Oh
Oh
my
my
God.
God.
I did not read that they had left the state. I had read that they
Yeah,
had gotten the abortion pills, but
no, they left the state to get them because you also can't get them now in Texas because Texas is blocking it, which is illegal because it's a there that's the mail is
Commerce
federal.
Clause, yeah. Well, it's also the Commerce Clause that
Yes.
is untested so far, but
Yeah.
oh my, that is horrific.
so
I
that
have
is why someone who needs to or knows someone who needs to come camping in Massachusetts, my door is always open.
excellent.
Um,
I think that
Mis Mis I think Tim, who got muted for 5 seconds, I'm gonna call that a misfire. Maybe he posted a couple times, so Kelsey might have seen it as spamming. But he was saying that Missouri state legislators proposing a bill that would allow for women to be charged with first degree. And I just looked it up, and
Yes.
that it's true. There's a bill that was proposed in Missouri that would charge women who get
It's
an
not the
abortion
only
with first
state
degree.
either. It's either North or South. I think it's North Carolina, possibly South Carolina,
Yeah, North
is doing the same
Carolina
thing.
just had that big blow up just now about where women actually changed their voting registration cards because they wanted to make a
Oh,
total
gotcha,
ban
Kelsey.
on it on abortion.
Well, Tim, if you're still here, it was only for 5 seconds, and it's just because that word could get my live in trouble. But you said that I know you were talking about this earlier. You said that North Carolina, um, the women had changed their voting registration, right?
Well, I'm hoping that women all over this country are changing their voter registration to fight this. I mean, I never thought I'd see it. I never believed it. I had friends that told me it was going to happen. I had friends that warned me, and I was like, "Oh no, 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 that's never going to happen. That's never going to happen." I mean, I voted Democrat because anyway, but I never believed that it was going to happen until it did.
Yeah. I didn't think it was ever gonna. I'm like, they're not gonna do that. They can't do that. It was 50 years. It's like this is set in stone. It's set in stone. It's set in stone.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, because I
Yep.
studied political science in college, and I know like a lot of what I studied was the judicial system and the Supreme Court. And I studied the history of how the court kind of ebbs and flows in their thinking and as society changes. And I saw when Obama would not appoint somebody to the Supreme Court and wanted to wait for Trump to do it, I knew we were fucked.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hey there, Corrine. Oh yeah, Anna was telling us that in North Carolina, women switched their voter registration because they were threatening an abortion ban. Without the D. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I'm gonna go back to something that. Oh, oh no, go ahead. Sorry. Hey, Corrine, I'm gonna interrupt you and drop you and have you request back because the comments can't hear you. We can hear you, but they can't. So I'm gonna drop you so you can come right back, okay? Oh, mute, unmute. That would have been so much easier, Justin. You should have said that first. Now I feel bad.
Um, just to make this clear, because I ran out of characters. Um, Timothy, which I don't know if he's still here. I said when he said, so at what point is abortion not okay? And my response was when the child can sustain life outside of a human. And what I mean by that is, in my opinion, if the person who is carrying the fetus no longer wants it and it can be sustained outside, it should be. That is my opinion, and I don't think that that is a blanket thing.
Which
That is
means
that is
give
what I
birth
would
to
do for myself.
which
So,
means
well, the
give birth to it
problem,
and let it sustain itself outside of the human.
Right.
Yeah.
but
Without
at what
machines and things.
Okay, I was going to say you would have to
Yeah, yeah,
clarify
no
because at
outside, yeah.
24 weeks you can technically, it's technically viable outside the womb, but it requires a
No,
lot of support and possibly, long-term problems with that.
right. No, not NICU. I'm talking full sustainability without machines or technology to help it gestate further.
Is Corinne back?
Made sense.
No, I sent them an invite, but I don't know what happened. I'm so sorry. I definitely wanted them, but I definitely wanted them to share their opinion, but I don't know what happened. I sent them an invite.
But once again, like I said, that's my choice for me. And I don't expect anyone else to agree with me on that. If someone came up to me and said, I'm 38 weeks and I do not want this anymore and I don't want to go through childbirth, they're the way. That's It's up to them whether or not they want to keep creating it.
And an interesting, I guess, hypothetical would be if a woman came in and was delivering and started to have just the fetus started to have distress, and a C-section was indicated, but the woman didn't want a C-section, refused the C-section. Is she still going to be charged with murder? I mean, because she refused surgery?
What if the baby survives and the woman does not? Should the baby then be charged with murder?
That part,
I feel like that's fair. I don't really think that's reasonable because I don't think women should be forced to bear children that they will unalive them. But just a thought. Did I get disconnected?
Well, it's
No.
Oh, I did it.
and I don't think it's about right to life ultimately. I don't think that these politicians, these old white men essentially care
No.
about about women or babies. I think that it's
It's
about
right to
control.
control.
it's about the
Yeah.
workforce. We're the ones that can create the workforce. And in my opinion, there's my conspiracy. Is
Yeah.
birth rates dropped because Gen Z looked around and said, "Oh no, 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 I'm not bringing life into this world." And the United States government went, "Oh no, our workforce." And then here's Roe v. Wade getting kicked out. I don't think that you can look at one without the other.
Well, Arkansas has lowered the age of
Consent.
employment, consent to employment, without having to get a special dispensation from the state Department of whatever, and but anyway, to 14. So now 14-year-olds can work in factories legally.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, no, it's fabulous.
Texas has that on the docket.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
We already had that kind of in place, but now it doesn't have the guidelines that it did. What we had in place was if your family is below a certain median, you could get a hardship. You could get a hardship license to work and drive, and you could get it at 14. Now what's on the docket makes it so that you don't have to have those qualifications. You could just go in.
By all means, let's take a poor family, give them a reason to pull their kids out of school or to let them work all night so they can't actually focus on education, so they have even less chance of getting out of
Right.
poverty.
Is it a conspiracy to say by design, right? It's by design, isn't it?
It's only about, oh, there's Corinne back. It's only a moment of time before they drop that age too, Diesel.
Right. Well, and the thing is that's what it creates. Those low income families create a workforce, and they create our military forces,
Yeah,
which is
also it
why
reminds
you
me. Oh,
you
sorry.
don't have these safety nets in place, is because if you had these safety nets in place, we wouldn't have the military that we.
This kind of reminds me of that point in history where there were all the trusts, and Teddy Roosevelt came in and busted all the trusts up because it is corporate America, after all, that is the patriarchy that rules our lives, and that's what's killing us is economically. We're being price gouged. The lobbyists in Washington are skirting our beliefs because 80, what did you say the other day, or Maeve said it, I think, the other day, that 80% of Americans agree with abortion.
Oh, it's
And
yeah, it's
so
Most of them do, yes.
70
This country is
it's
pro-choice. Majority is
yes,
pro-choice.
and our actual legislators aren't even paying attention to that because they're too busy paying attention to what the Christian right wants.
Well, Gavin, thank
And
God for Gavin. Oh my God, Gavin's a godsend. Thank God for him. Oh, God for
so there,
Gavin.
so there's that.
it is
Gavin
in
is
the
literally
high
saving.
70s. Go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, like I said, I don't know what part of the country everyone's from here. I mean, I overheard North Carolina, which triggered me because my ex is from North Carolina, unfortunately. That's a valid reason for why I had to. Thank God I wasn't pregnant. Oh my God. Um, well, not because of where he's from, but because of what happened to him. I'm just saying that depending on what part of the country you're in, it's kind of ironic that the most vacation destined states are all pro-choice. Like, think about it. Nevada,
Oh,
California, New Jersey, New York, they're
Massachusetts.
all pro-choice.
Is New Jersey pro-choice? Oh
No,
wow.
they're liberal.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, here's the
they
thing.
are.
I don't mean to bring all this politician crap into it, but does anybody think maybe it's rigged to some extent? Because, okay, so for example, Gavin Newsom won another 4 years. Now, there's a lot of people in California that hate him, but he is a godsend to women because he made it very clear if you need assistance as a woman, he'll provide that within his. So that's another thing. Who decides based on the state? Now that it's a state by state basis, is it the governor, legislation, surgeon general? Where's everybody from that they can verify where it's going to affect them?
Personally, I think it should be the voters in every state, but that's not gonna happen because then they won't be
Yeah,
able
but
to
you're voting
control
for
it.
something, though. That's my
Yeah,
point. You're voting for something. It's not majority rules. It's whoever's running the legislation.
yeah. I'm
Where's
in
everybody
I
from?
Massachusetts, so I don't have that problem. I'll never have that problem.
Well, the
Where are you from?
legislation is.
I'm in Arizona. Arizona's weird. We've gone back to this ridiculous law back in the day. However, our governor that was appointed, it was neck and neck between her and a pro-life governor, Carrie Lake. But
Well, that
Katie
lady's
Hobbs
nuts.
won. But to this day, Carrie Lake is actually challenging that. She's actually claiming it. That does happen, but that's where I was bringing up the point is where do people draw that line where they think that it could be voter fraud just to get elections won over? I mean, it was kind of an interesting
well,
situation because
it's point zero. Oh gosh, I think it's 0.02%. It's less than that. It's the amount of voter fraud that occurs in the United States is very, very low. Very
exactly.
low.
So, see, the thing is, okay, so this whole thing happened back when Roe v. Wade was overturned. So it was neck and neck between two governors. One was pro-life, one was pro-choice. They were both women, and yet they had to wait like a week to figure out. They had to recount the votes, just like back in the day with the whole George Bush, Al Gore thing. It was like They had to recount all the votes. It was so neck and neck, and then they decided Katie Hobbs won. But yet Carrie Lake is still trying to challenge that to this day. It's been months, and she's still trying to challenge it. So people are like, well, maybe that's the reason why she lost, is because of the whole Roe v. Wade overturn. It was so neck and neck, but maybe Arizona didn't want to become pro-life.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if that was
But think
the
about it. Yeah, I mean, if you think two governors, here they are, two neck and neck women. They have to recount the votes. How embarrassing is that? They have to do that a lot of the time. They did the same thing with Trump and Biden. They did the same thing with Gore and Bush. It was like, oh, we're so divided as a nation. But you got to figure, with Roe v. Wade being overturned, Arizona, not all Arizonans wanted the state to become pro-life.
Well,
And
that
Carrie
was
Lake
like
said, oh, it
Maricopa
will
County,
be.
right?
yeah. Look what happened in Oklahoma. The record, I think it was Oklahoma, the record number of people that came out to codify, because they said, you know what, we're going to the ballot. And the sheer volume of people that came out specifically to vote for that, to keep it legal, to keep it, you know, to put it, make it part of the constitution of the
Well, that's
state,
the whole point. So, like, for
was
example,
insane.
no matter who wins the next presidency, that's not going to change abortion, pro-life, pro-choice. It's not going to matter. It's up to the states. They made that decision thanks to Trump. Trump appointed those freaking judges that changed everything. And yet, even if he wins again, he can't change it. Even if a Democrat wins, it won't change. It's state by state now. So now it's up to the governors and it's up to the legislators and the Surgeon General. So
Well,
who actually makes the
Well,
call?
so there's one potential pathway. The ERA has been ratified by enough states. It the only thing that keeps it at this point from becoming a a constitutional amendment is that it had a time limit set on it, which was kind of strange for constitutional amendments. That's not kind of the norm, and so it expired before it had enough states to ratify it. But since then, there have been states that have ratified it anyway. So it's just sitting there waiting for the legislature to vote on that removing that time limit. Now, I believe, and I could be wrong about this, I believe it's the Senate has already voted, and it's just waiting on a vote in the House. So if the House voted on that resolution and removed that, then it would immediately become a part of the Constitution, enshrining women's rights as equal, and it would put abortion back in play.
if anyone doesn't know, the ERA is the Equal Rights Amendment. I looked it up real quick.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're okay. Just in case, which would add it says an explicit guarantee of sex equality in the United States Constitution, and it would protect the rights to abortion as well as other full range of reproductive health care. So that
Aren't there also
I
states trying to take back their ratification, which I think is just like a trip and a
There's
half?
no pathway for them to take back their ratification. Once it's done, it's done.
Oh, I
mm.
know. I'm just saying like that was vocalized. I'm like that just
Yeah,
what?
yeah. I don't I can't explain it. It's insane.
Yeah.
And one of the things that always drives me nuts about the abortion conversation when it comes to abortion as in healthcare, part of the language in the ERA about, or at least the talking points for it, is that restrictions on abortion make it the single most like legislated medical procedure that there is. And that's ridiculous because we've seen time and time again that the people in our government they don't have medical degrees. So why is it that they should be even discussing that in any way, shape, or
Well,
form? It's absolutely crazy.
also, to kind of tie into that in a weird way, um, something that's covered fully under my insurance is my husband's vasectomy. If he wanted to go down and get a vasectomy, he could. He could walk in and it would be a office visit. Like it's like so easy for him to go in and say, I don't want any more kids. Meanwhile, for me to get my tubes tied, they only cover 50% after my deductible is met. And my deductible is $24,000.
Oh my God.
And then I have already gone in 4 times to doctors and been denied a tubal ligation. The first time, I was told I'm too young. The second time, I was asked if I was married, and I said no, and the doctor said that I would have to get my father's approval.
Oh my God.
The third
Oh,
time,
hell no.
oh yeah, the third time I was told I needed my husband's approval. The fourth
Mm-hmm.
time I got my husband's approval, and then the doctor said, are all 4 children yours? And I said, no, 2 of them are my husband's. And the doctor said, well, you might get divorced and your next husband might want more kids.
Too
And
bad for
that was the
him.
point where I stopped trying because it was just, I would get so furious that I have no choice on any side of this. Whether I get a say in something literally leaching nutrients out of my body to the point where it could kill me.
Not even a say, it's just not even a say in once that's happening, but whether or not you want it to happen again. You don't even get a
Right.
say. And that's one of the craziest things too about women who want to have, or people with uteruses who want to have tubal ligations or even a hysterectomy, whatever they want to do to make sure they can of not being pregnant, they do not want children, is that many states, many doctors will tell you that you need your husband's permission. You don't even get to decide whether or not you actually want to have children. That's insane. Men would
I
never.
have I have a friend whose doctor said it was against his religion.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, but the second that you walk, this is my opinion is the second you walk into a medical profession, and you're talking about someone else's body, your beliefs get to leave at the door.
That's, yeah.
I have a friend with 5 boys. 5. She basically had one every 2 years. After her fourth, she was told it would be a really bad idea for you to have another child. She had a fifth. She was told by her doctor, right, if you have another child, if you get pregnant again, it will kill you. Do not, under any circumstances, get pregnant again. And she was like, okay, cool. Left, went home, doing the recovery, after the pregnancy, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know why she just didn't get done while she was there, but that's another story. And a few months later, went in, having her follow-up appointments, talks to him about making the appointment to get her tubes tied. And he looked at her and went, well, you're still young. What if you want to have more kids? The same doctor.
Mm,
That's
that's
that's what I'm
crazy.
saying. Men can um penis holders can walk in
Mhm.
at 18 with no pushback.
Yeah.
I had a friend who did it
The
at 18.
moment that you're of legal age, you can yourself and say, I don't want kids, and the doctor will say, cool, you're gonna have to rest for 3 days. Don't pick up anything heavy for three
Go
days.
buy some
But
pens.
we walk in and go, I want to be under a knife and go through this major surgery because I don't want kids. And they're like, really? Are you sure? I don't know. You're a little too young to be making that decision.
But then they're also against their will sterilizing women of color. So there's that part of it too.
Yeah, and migrants, which are usually women of color, but also in high rates.
Yep. And it's
So
happening recently. Like a woman,
yes.
there's a woman who speaks on it. She's an Asian American doctor, went in for an appendectomy and came out sterilized. Um, as well. She did not have, they did take the appendix, but they also took her ability to have children.
Mm. So I thought to wrap it up, we could talk a little bit about like what we can do um, in the fight for women's or uterus havers' rights to abortion access and reproductive health care. And one of the things that Maven told us about earlier that I think we should be talking about is that in August, I think it was August 8th, I have to go back and find it again. Ohio is having a special election. They have an amendment that you need to vote no for. And so that's something that I think we can talk about right now that's going to help people in Ohio specifically. Um, we need to make sure that people vote and vote locally. The local elections are so important for legislation and for protecting people's rights. You need to be involved on a local level. That's just like one of the most basic ways that we can help make a difference.
If if you are in a state like Texas, it is important that you do not talk about anything over the phone. Do not put it in any form of text. If you go to look up, if you get into a situation where you need to go camping, um, go to go on a physical computer or your browser in your phone. Make sure it is you have a VPN, and you use incognito mode, and then go to elevatedaccess.org, and they will help you get out. They have places for you to stay until the plane gets there. They have plane rides that will get you out, and they have volunteers that will house you in the location where you are camping until it is safe for you to get back on a plane and go back home. But do not communicate textually
No.
over the phone.
The Ohio special election is August 8th, by the way. I wanted to get that information correct. It is August 8th. And the measure that they want to pass is to make it so that in order to amend the state constitution, instead of having a simple majority, you need 60%. And the reason why they're doing it because they want to make it harder for voters to pass an abortion rights amendment. That's going to be on the ballot in November. So vote in August 8th in Ohio. You live in Ohio, vote in the special election. You want to vote no to raise it from simple majority to can't win by playing by the rules, so they will always change the rules.
Or at least try to.
Facts.
And you want to when we're talking about to protect abortion, there's going to be links in the link tree in my bio, by the way, of the stuff that we're talking about. We have stuff in there from the transgender lab, and we'll have stuff in there from abortion rights. You want to in locally, I know it probably sounds crazy, but write letters, emails, call your local state legislators, at the local on the local level, on the state level, call your governors and your mayors and whoever it is that is involved in passing laws, more so the governors on a state level. Tell them that this is not to ban abortions, that we have to make sure that we are contacting our state legislature. They're not going to vote the way you want them to. Vote for someone else. We have to protect abortion.
And if you're a boots on the ground kind of person, a good thing to do would be to volunteer at clinics, just to be there to protect women who are going in. If you're that kind of person and you believe in that type of activism, that's one thing you can do. You can also volunteer your time to just Planned Parenthood. great organization, and they're still working really hard behind the scenes
Hmm.
to work with uterus holders and protect their rights.
There are also a lot of camping, like local camping organizations
Hmm.
here, so I'm sure they're everywhere um, that have like camping networks that work on the ground to help people go camping when they need to.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah.
Um,
There are some states. There's 16 states that are considered safe harbor states for Michigan. For Michigan is I didn't mean to say Michigan for abortion. I was just reading my notes. But and Oregon, you were talking about Oregon earlier. They actually have $15 million that they have budgeted to help people travel for camping reasons.
and if you are in the state of Texas, there is still one Planned Parenthood in Houston. That Planned Parenthood is giving abortion referrals. So they will help you in getting access to that care. They also they also have a stock, I just looked it up, of Plan B pills and just the regular, they also provide free birth control and, of course, since we're on the subject, STD testing, men's health, and things of that sort. So if you are in Texas or know someone in the area, be sure to refer them to there. I think there's also still an Austin clinic.
So Plan B is also available on Amazon. It is inexpensive, and you can have it delivered right to your house. Um, I don't know for how long that's going to be available, but you can right now order it without a prescription.
That
Interesting.
is good to know.
Yeah.
It's great to know.
So
Also, there is a also make sure you check with your employers because some employers actually have a an abortion package that they will pay um, the fees for the procedure, for any travel that you might incur for needing to get the procedure. Um, in my case, because I am in the 2S LGBTQIA plus community, they would pay not only for my wife to travel with me, um, so it would be like a couples thing. They would pay for both of us. But yeah, so check into your companies because some companies do offer that with your health insurance now.
I did not know
Yeah.
that either. That is good to
Yeah,
know.
because a lot of states they're not allowed to offer it with health insurance, so they are offering you the
Oh,
ability to go where you need to go to do it.
gotcha.
Yeah, ours does. So
It's also another thing that you can do if you're a boots on the ground type of person. Organize, attend a rally, a demonstration, a silent protest. Get involved on a boots on the ground local level if you can to go to protest to show support so that people don't think that it's people don't care. You show up, you see the faces, people believe that there is. I mean, with 73% of our country believing that abortion should be legal, there should be plenty of people to attend those.
Okay, so
last thing,
I
sorry.
just looked this up. That also applies to USAA. If you get your health insurance or life insurance through USAA, they'll pay travel costs and travel fees and for the procedure.
Good to know.
Make sure that anyone in your sphere knows that the resource centers that are popping up all over the place.
Oh
And I
gosh.
know in Arkansas they're actually getting state money. They are not abortion
Hmm.
centers. They do not refer. They actively discourage you, and they will lie.
Yes.
Yes.
They will
And
lie to run the clock out.
Yes, they will.
and a lot of those end up being ran by religious organizations.
Yes.
Like
The
they can't
last
win unless they lie.
Yes. The last one, the last thing I have about what you can do is like really simple, and it's something that we're doing here today, and it's part of the reason why we're doing it, and that is talking about abortion. Making social media posts, um, talking about it just in general with the people around you, talking about abortion and why it's important and what's going on with the abortion bans and what it leads to. Um, that just really simply keeping that topic to the forefront of what's going on, especially as we get into, November's coming up. There's going to be elections all across our country, and the next year is an election year. So this is something that we need to continually be talking about.
I will say to help with the whole not falling into the wrong hands and going to the wrong clinic. I would highly encourage downloading the Planned Parenthood app, and they will find you where an abortion can be done.
Perfect. That's good to know. Something
Right.
else. I said I had one last thing, but something else that, and it's something that I am actively working on myself, but something that helps is using inclusive language about abortion. Women, girls, and people can be uteruses, because gender and non-binary people can get pregnant, trans men can get pregnant. So using inclusive language is also very helpful.
Well, thank you so
This
much.
Anyone?
was
This has
really
been a great talk.
this was
Thank
really
you
good
for coming,
content.
Maggie. Listen, I was very excited when you came and you told us that you work in the field, and I like messaged on my Sass Show Discord people. I was like, an expert. I was very excited. So thanks for coming and hanging out with us. I gave you a follow. We talk. I do this live that's for all women and people assigned female at birth, because a lot of times you probably know that men tend to dominate on social media, and we did abortion this week because I'm sick and tired of men talking about it and talking about it incorrectly. So hopefully you'll come back another time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Yes,
Yeah, y'all have a great night.
you
I
too. And
followed
thanks
you also.
and thanks to
Bye.
all my guests, and thanks to my moderators and everyone watching. I hope everyone has a great night, and we'll see you next week. Oh, next week we're going to be talking about transgender people. There was a video about that I saw where there was an argument made that the people in the 2S LGBTQIA are not more brave than the military, and especially when you look at the transgender community, that's just a ridiculous statement. Transgender people are facing ridiculous amounts of hate in this country, and so we're going to be talking about the topic of transgender next week.
Sounds good.
Veterans will be present.
Yes, you guys have a great night.
Thanks, you
Good
too.
night.
Good night.
Bye.
Right.